Okay, Travis Wayne Goodsell on a Babylonian Sabbath. Well, it's actually a Constantinian Sabbath taken from the Babylonian Sabbath, but I've already discussed that with you guys in another video. Today I wanted to go over what is evil, but then this morning I decided, well, no, let's go back to the issues that hopefully one of them will cause Mormons to up and leave the church. So we're going to go to issue number 9, and I'm going to skip to unsound reasoning, unsound argument, unsound logic, unsound discussion, because part of the unsoundness is that Mormons utilize incorrect definitions of words. So if I say unsound argument, which is the field terminology, Mormons say, you're not supposed to contend because contention is of the devil because the Book of Mormon tells me so. But this is exactly what I'm exposing as unsound, because such reasoning by Mormons is unsound. To contend in a court of law, for example, is not of the devil. To argue a case in the court of law is not a contention of the devil. So Mormons are misdefining words. It's similar to the little game that scientists and creationists play with each other. Scientists play mind games on Christians when they say that there's no way that Noah could have had 2 of every species of animal on the dimensions of the ark indicated in the biblical text. And Christians say, well, God works in mysterious ways, and nobody knows the ways of God, and it's still true. Unsound argument against a little wordplay by scientists. If you Christians had paid attention in your science class rather than protesting to have creationism taught in your school, you would know that there are categories, and there have been new categories since I learned the categories, but I'm not going to go into that. But kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So you see where you've been played as chumps, Christians? Scientists are saying species when the Babylonians were the ones who figured out how to breed animals to create new species. It started with sheep because they needed to have unblemished sheep for their sacrifices, and some guy figured out, hey, let's try breeding 2 clean sheep, male and a female, and see if they produce a clean sheep as well. Lo and behold, the master race was born, and they learned how to breed. And so it was no longer a free-for-all, whatever animal gets to whatever animal first. Now they were able to say, okay, hey, if we want a specific a look for an animal, all we have to do is get 2 of the same look and pair them together. And so that's 600 BC. So when was Noah? long before. So if genus and species didn't occur until Babylon, guess what? It was all family groups prior to. And so you have much less family groups at the time of whenever the flood story occurred. And then there's arguments as to when it occurred, which utilize unsound reasoning on multiple fronts on that issue. Okay, so with Mormons, what is the unsound reasoning that they utilize? Well, how did it begin? It began with, I can't remember his first name, but Peterson. He's the one responsible. And you can, Mormons know who he is, I'm sure, because they go to the apologetics at BYU to figure it all out, and they know of him, and he got canned from his own project that he created. And last I heard, he got hired at the Deseret News. So, but he started the organization called FARMS. It's an acronym for Foundation of Ancient Research and Mormon Studies. The only problem is that despite using the terms research and studies, they had in their mission statement that they were not going to pursue scientific proof. So why then are you putting in the acronym of your name, research and studies, if you're not doing science? And that's where apologetics come in. Now, again, here's a different definition that Mormons have adopted and the rest of the world has. You know, when you say you're an apologist, you're not saying you're somebody who goes around saying, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. No, that's an apology, but it's not the original Greek definition of apologist. The original has to do with a defense utilizing unsound reasoning. And so, yeah, that's what emerged in the church to destroy it from within. And, you know, you have your BYU professors, quote unquote, because, you know, they may have had a PhD certification at some school, but that doesn't mean they're smart and that they're utilizing the skills that they were taught. And so these Mormon apologists are the ones who are responsible for the gospel topic essay, John Gee, for historicity and translation of the Book of Abraham, that gospel topic essay. And in there they say, well, yeah, Joseph Smith didn't translate the Book of Abraham. It's not a correct translation, as Egyptologists all confirm, even though I've done videos to show you yes, and I'm hoping to get started on a lesson campaign to teach Paleo-Hebrew, to then teach Egyptian, to then teach how the Genesis stories were created, so that you too can figure it all out for yourself. And so the church is really getting thrashed on because of the apologetic groups. It started as farms, then after a little spat regarding me occurred, President Hinckley did away with farms and merged it with the Maxwell Institute, and Peterson was allowed to be on the I don't know, the board or whatever of the organization, and then over time they kicked him out, and he went to the Deseret News. But it became Fair after Farms, and then Fair became Fair Mormon, I guess. And I think that's what it still is today, though there may be some other branch off. I'm not quite sure. I don't bother with them because they're unsound in their reasoning. It's not worth my time listening to people who are unsound. That's why I don't listen to Fox News, because they're unsound. But, and yes, MSNBC, when they do their regular shows outside of Rachel Maddow, yes, they're unsound in their panel discussions and arguments and all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, we're looking at a huge disinformation campaign against Americans, and it's working. And it's working in the Mormon Church. And so, what are some things to watch out for? Well, one is, I was told this as a kid, you don't want to Bible bash. Well, what is Bible bashing? Is it discussing Scripture? No. It's taking your conclusions, which are unsound, and using those conclusions to argue against someone of another faith or religion's conclusions. And you go back and forth with your unsound arguments of conclusion bashing. That's what Bible bashing is conclusion bashing. And it's, yes it is, no it isn't, yes it is, no it isn't type argument. You know, as kids, that's a useless argument. It gets nowhere, and nothing is resolved and settled and concluded and decided from that. And some people, even in the church, believe if I can get it into that kind of an argument, I will win and be able to maintain my beliefs. You dummy. I won my argument, therefore I'm right, even though I've not done the proper arguing to make my point right. So how does one make a correct argument? You have to use premises that deductively lead to a conclusion. And the other person, or critics, in order to destroy a person's conclusion, cannot go after the conclusion. They have to go after the premises of the argument. And so when people make claims of seeing angels or seeing God or getting buried plates that are not available for view and study for confirmation of translation, that is a big weakness that can be exploited by critics, because the person making the claim has to prove their claim. And religions are long since been getting away with this, long before the church, the LDS Church has been trying it. And so understand, Mormons, that you can't say that the Book of Mormon is true because you haven't done the necessary premises to lead to that conclusion. And you can't come out and say, I have a feeling, therefore it's true. That's unsound logic. That's unsound reasoning. That's an unsound argument. You can't do that. But you do it specifically so that nobody challenges you, don't you? You don't want to be challenged on your beliefs. There's a difference between knowledge and belief. And beliefs are worthless. I'm sorry, Beliefs are worthless. Feelings are worthless. Opinions are worthless. Speculations are worthless. Knowledge is power. Plato is the one who first said that, and he's the one quoted as saying that. But knowledge is what you want to get. Knowledge is what the Book of Mormon tells you, teaches you how to get from faith. Alma 32, starting in verse 28. Got to keep reading to the point where he talks about fruit from the tree. The fruit is knowledge, where planting the seed is faith. And yet Mormons have been clueless when the answer has been right there in your Book of Mormon the whole time. And so the original doctrine of the church is sound. But Mormons have twisted the scriptures to make an unsound argument. Now, if you've been aware of my blogs and videos, you'll know that I am no longer actively participating in the Mormon Church, the Brighamite Mormon Church. And the reason why is because the former bishop in my area here said, "Hey Travis, you can't go around telling people that the Book of Mormon is the official doctrine of the church." Yeah, he said that to me. A bishop in the church that uses the Book of Mormon as the official doctrine told me I can't go around telling people that the Book of Mormon is the official doctrine. Wow. Okay. And the stake president has refused to do anything about it, extended his term for an extra 6 months, and the elders quorum president refused to do anything. And with the changes that Nelson has made back in April conference of 2018, that just ensures that they aren't interested in recovering lost sheep as they suppose. They created the lost sheep by opening the gate and kicking them out, and then they don't even bother to reclaim those lost sheep to claim credit for recovering lost sheep. It's a horrible, evil tactic, people, and they don't get it. They're utilizing unsound reasoning in all that they're doing to me. And so the new bishop, he comes in, Bishop Cummins. Yes, I'm naming names. You know, he comes in. He's unaware. Well, he knows of, but he doesn't know what happened because the former bishop cornered me and talked with me alone. There are no witnesses of his threat to me. And so he then claims that he never said that. And yet, what is he doing to reclaim me? Nothing. He did nothing. And then he goes around and tells other people that I'm mentally ill. And therefore twisting people's words. You see what he's doing? He's using unsound reasoning, which is, it's lies. If you can't figure out by now that unsound means lie, you know, it's a simplistic definition, but Mormons, you need to understand what's going on here. The apologetics of BYU are lies. They're liars. You can't say that people are liars. Yes, you can. If you catch them in a lie, you can call them a liar. They said this, therefore that's a lie. Therefore they, having said that and promoted it, are liars. See how it deductively leads to the conclusion? And Mormons just don't get this. And so Bishop Cummins comes in. He refuses to recover the lost sheep. And he goes around and tells the other members of the ward that I twist the scriptures. So he's been apparently reading my blogs on my website. And he's trying to bash with my conclusions with his preconceived conclusion. He doesn't argue by saying, well, Travis said this, which is a lie. Therefore, Travis is lying about his understanding of the scriptures. He doesn't say that. He just says outright his conclusion, Travis is twisting the scriptures. He is defaming my name to the members of the ward. Why? So that the members of the ward will not listen to me. Yeah, that's evil, isn't it? And that's what the brethren of the church do. That's what the prophets do. And whether they do it directly or whether they do it by their position of power. Because what do Mormons accuse me of, and what the guy who comes on and does the thumbs down automatically have as their justification for giving me a thumbs down and complaining against me? They say, you're an antichrist, you're an apostate, but why? What is it that I said that causes them to make that unsound conclusion? Because you're going against the prophets, and you're going against, listen carefully, the church. Both are unsound reasoning for labeling me the ad hominem, because if you use an unsound argument to label a person, that's an ad hominem. If I call you a dummy, that's not necessarily an ad hominem. If I can point out that it's because of a comment you made or an unsound argument that you use, then I'm justified in calling you a dummy. However, if I'm unsound, then it's inappropriate for me to call you a dummy. And so Mormons, if you're using, I'm going against the prophets, I'm going against the church, not gospel. Not a single Mormon says I'm going against the gospel. It's always the church that I'm going against. And see, I answer, yes, I'm against the Brighamite church. I have to clarify that now because Mormons don't get it. And so when I say Brighamite church, that should ring bells in their mind. That they have not studied the succession crisis of the church in the church's history. If Mormons were to simply study what happened to the church after Joseph Smith was murdered, they would know that there were other people also trying to take over leadership. Why then were they rejected? Well, because Brigham Young was the one chosen by God. Well, why? What made Brigham Young chosen? You're not presenting the correct premises, the sound premises that would lead to that conclusion that Brigham Young is God's chosen successor for the church. And Mormons can't do it. First of all, they don't know the historical background. And second, the church deceives the members by providing them with the threat that you can only study church-approved materials. They are censoring other evidence so that Mormons remain ignorant and in the dark about the truth. And that is an unsound. That's an unsound reasoning, by limiting the resources to look for the evidence. It's similar to a small sampling argument. And the news makes that all the time when they say the polls indicate. What? I was not polled. I am not factored into those percentages that you're coming up with. How many people did you contact? Or you'll hear a reporter on a panel discussion say, well, the people I've talked to say, the majority of them say that. How many did you talk to? Was it just a couple of coworkers at the water cooler? Is that what you're basing your opinion on? So that leaving out of information, not going to the whole source of possible evidence, and you don't have to do all the evidence necessarily to establish something's wrong. You do need to continue to look for more and more to confirm that you're right. And that's something else that's involved in scientific research. And so for me, as a critic of the church, the Brighamite church, it doesn't take a whole lot for me to establish and essentially prove that the church is not the true church of God. I just need to bring out one of these issues, and boom, church is automatically false. And so I don't think Mormons are understanding this. Mormons have a whole lot more to do, because I've still got a couple dozen more issues to bring up. And Mormons, in order to properly defend, not apologetically defend, their religion, they have to be able to answer each and every single issue to confirm that the church could be true. Again, it doesn't prove that it's true if they can answer each and every single one of my issues. Mormons just don't get it. With the people making the initial claim, the burden of proof is on them, not on the critics. And so the ex-Mormons get it. They've up and left the church. Hold on a minute. Okay. And so they've already figured out which issue was enough for them to say, okay, this church is unsound. I'm out of here. This is more than I can handle. And but for Mormons, this topic, this issue right here should be enough, because you're sticking with the church, you're not doing your research, and yet you're claiming every first Sunday of the month. No, last Sunday was the first Sunday of the month. So last Sunday you got up at the pulpit and you gave your Rammy-umptum. Zoramites, Rammy-umptum? Ring any bells? You've been reading the Book of Mormon at least, haven't you? They gave rote prayers to say, "Oh God, we thank thee that thou hast chosen us over our brethren, and that we are better than them." So you need to understand that the Book of Mormon is teaching about unsound reasoning. All the antichrists use unsound reasoning. The Zoramites, the rich Zoramites, unsound reasoning. Even the poor Zoramites, they had to be corrected. You don't need a church to worship God. The church is supposed to be the medium for the temple rituals, not the Freemason temple rituals, God's temple rituals. Notice the change there. Because you'll say, well, yeah, Travis, the church has the temple rituals. Freemasons, check your garments. Square in the compass. That's Freemason. Remember, you're told not to reveal what goes on in the temple. Shh, keep it a secret. You'll die. You have to commit suicide if you tell. That was Brigham Young, not Joseph Smith. Thus, I am anti-Brighamite Mormonism. Brigham Young is the Mormon bigot, hater, racist, sexist, murderer, thief. He's all of those things. Not because I'm ad hominem, throwing out ad hominems at him. He is guilty of these things. Thus, I can call him that. His own conference talks. You know, he was the one that said, the Book of Mormon says that blacks are evil because God turned them black, and therefore they have the big nose, and therefore I'm taking away priesthood from all future blacks. That's racism. He got up at the pulpit in conference here in the New Utah, which was Kingdom of Deseret. He established himself as king. Remember what the Book of Mormon says about kings in this land? That was a warning to us. Mormons fell for it. They let him be king. The United States, however, didn't, and quickly removed him from power. So, yeah. Brigham Young was like Trump. You know, he talks up a big game of his racist behavior, but when the government comes in with the army, he's quick to tuck tail and hide and cower. Okay, I'll do whatever you say. You know, Brigham Young had a kingdom. Get your men, arm them. Oh, they didn't bring guns with them. Yes, they did. Certain elect people. You know, Orrin Porter Rockwell, isn't he your assassin? Have him go into the camp of the United States and kill the captain of the army, or whatever the military leader is called. You know, that's from the Book of Mormon. That's Amlici leaves the Nephites and fools the Lamanites that, hey, those Nephites, they're bad. I'll help you fight them. Yeah, woo, welcome to our gang. And then he rises up to power by killing the leader of each successive group until he becomes the king of all the Lamanites. So, the bad examples are in the Book of Mormon. The bad logical thinking, the unsound reasoning are in the Book of Mormon. But you're not supposed to adopt them into your reasoning. That's not the message of the Book of Mormon. The message of the Book of Mormon is, no, here's sound reasoning. When somebody says something to you, you don't hastily say, no, it's wrong. You can prove if it's wrong by believing in it. Now, it seems a little weird, but that's what Alma 32, starting verse 28, is talking about. So what the Book of Mormon is saying is to listen to the words of Travis Wayne Goodsell right now. Believe them. Believe them in your heart. That's what believing is. It's a feeling. And work to replicate it into fruit. That's the key. Remember, faith without works is dead. If you just have faith alone, you've got nothing. You've got no proof. You've got no truth. It's dead. Faith alone is dead. It's worthless. You've got to replicate what I'm talking about. How do you replicate what I'm talking about? I've told you what to do. You have to do your church history. You've got to research it. You have to go back and figure out what happened at the succession crisis. Are you just going to use church-approved materials, or are you going to look for other documentation? Oh, but that's evil. That's apostate material. Again, you can discern with this faith process talked about in Alma 32, starting in 28. You don't have to fear anything. And when you produce enough fruit, then you can say, hey, wait a minute, no, I know that seed is bogus. That's wrong. I've already tried that fruit, and it was thorny. It didn't grow. So, yeah, you can figure this out. You don't need to fear. But that's what Mormons are taught, aren't you? You don't have women's magazines. Cosmo, for example, Women's Fitness or whatever women's magazines there are, in the grocery stores in Utah County, do you? You can't see them. They're covered up if they do exist. Why? Because you think that they're evil. They're going to corrupt the children. Stop it. That's why I was going to discuss what is evil. But the core of all of these issues has to do with Mormons unsoundly believing and making a conclusion based on their unsound reasoning, or feelings, nothing more than feelings, trying to forget my feelings of you. Thank you very much. I'm here all week. So yeah, this is going to be a long video compared to these others, because this is the keystone of Mormon ignorance, of why Mormons are sticking in the church and are refusing to up and leave. It is not to protect the church and protect the prophets. It is to protect the gospel. That's what you need to protect. You need to compare what the prophets say with the gospel. But first you have to find out, plant the seed of the gospel and see if you can replicate it so that you can know, as I do, that the gospel, hey, it is actually true. So that, like me, I can watch General Conference and keep going, oh man, they did not just say that. Because I've already planted the true seed so that I can now discern the false seeds. I've got fruit. And by their fruits ye shall know them. Remember that passage? So they may not reveal their fruits to you. They may only say words, but guess what? All they have to do is say something, and you can take those words and you can replicate them and expose them as liars, expose them as con men, if you've got the correct fruit yourself, not your unsound argument that you're using against them. And that's what ex-Mormons don't get either, or Christians. You know, they say, well, you know, faith is all we need, therefore faith without works is not what we need. You're contradicting your own scripture. So, what's it going to be, Mormons? Are you going to put your beliefs to the test and turn them into a knowledge of them being either true or false? That's what Mormons don't get when they try to come onto my website and attack me verbally or with the thumbs down. They automatically lose because I am arguing from a position of truth, and for them to come and attack me with unsound reasoning, they automatically lose. See, that's what you guys aren't getting from the Book of Mormon. The prophets confound the Antichrist because the Antichrists were using unsound argument. So the prophets had a position of knowledge and knew how to confound the Antichrist. So what happens is I'm confounding you. So what does that make you guys? You guys are the Antichrists. You guys are the apostates. You're in the church that you believe is of God, but you're the apostate because you're using unsound argument to justify it. You say, I know the church is true. Last week, you said, I know the church is true. Well, of course it's true. They filed the tax forms so that they're tax exempt. They're an official sole corporation as filed in the state of Utah back in 1940. And in that sole corporation filing, they said that the successor is always to be the president of the 12. So then listen to President Nelson in April conference again, when he says that the Lord established the pattern, that Brigham Young is the one he goes back to for defense of his successive rights. He's deceiving you. When you look at the evidence and you obtain the knowledge of truth, you now have power over the president of the Mormon Church to say, you lie. You do not speak for God. You are not leading this church according to God's ways. And that does not make me the Antichrist. It makes President Nelson the Antichrist. Or as John the Revelator prophesied, it makes Nelson the false prophet of Revelation chapter 13. Ooh, wow. See how I did that? And I can point out in Revelation 12 that the timing also confirms that it's Nelson. As I've already indicated that the beast is Trump. Because of the timing John put in Revelation 12. See, people pick on religions when they say that the end of the world is going to happen on this date. And then that date comes and goes, and the religion comes up with some lame excuse as to justify why it didn't happen, or they just ignore that they ever said it in the first place, hoping that everybody will have forgotten. And so religions, even Jehovah's Witnesses now, nobody gives an exact date for the end of the world. Because first of all, you're using unsound reasoning. You're assuming that the end of the world is going to happen on one day, not a slow boiling frog process. It's already begun. This is true. And we are in Armageddon. This is true. But that's just it. It is never as we believe until we replicate it, reproduce it, make it happen. And you can't force it to happen. You know, John gave a specific date. And so you have to wait for the date. And then you go, oh, okay. On the 21st of August, 2017, with a total solar eclipse, Trump got up that evening in front of the military services in Virginia and declared war against the whole world, specifically attacking Southeast Asia, who was a few days later struck by the huge, massive monsoon. Wait, Trump attacks them saying, give loyalty and tribute to me, or I will attack you, and then they get attacked with a monsoon. Yeah, I'm sure I can't remember the name of it. It's an acronym name. But I can't even remember the name of the scientist. I'm drawing a blank.
Well, that's because you're not supposed to say it, Travis. You're having a stupor of thought.
No, it's Tesla. He's the scientist who invented the HARP device. And after he was murdered in his old age in his apartment, the government stole his documents and then sold it to Russia. So Russia also has a HARP. They don't call it HARP, obviously. They call it their own Russian name. But they've used it. You know, there's evidence of them having used it. And there's us that have used it. In the Korean War, for example, we purposely caused a weather disaster to attack the Koreans. Those are all documented. So yeah, I was a little bit concerned about the extreme weather that we're having. And people are also saying, oh, it's because of global warming, global climate change, that they're now changing instead of it's inconsistent. That's how I can tell that there's something else going on rather than a natural process. If it were the Earth trying to readjust the Earth for what we've done to it, there would be a different response. And so clearly we've been tampering with the weather to cause extremes. Nevertheless, that's a different topic. Are you catching on, though, Mormons? You can't use unsound arguments. You got to stop it. Stop it at your pulpit. in your local wards last week, and then the whatever will be the first Sunday in January. Okay, so December 31st is Monday, so it's like the 6th or something of January. So stop, please. Find out the truth. Don't just argue to unsoundly defend the prophets and the church. It's not the church you want to protect. It's not the prophets you want to protect. It's the doctrine. It's the gospel you want to protect. So if you want to defend Nelson, you need to go to his words. And I'm sorry, I've already shot him down. I did a video series during conference. So I've already exposed Nelson as a fraud. I already exposed him as a liar. He is a false prophet. But why haven't you done that? That's your requirement in the church. You are to prove all things. That's, I think, Thessalonians, where that comes from. You'll have to fact check me on that. And it is in the New Testament. I could search it up now and take the time to look it up. And it has a search engine, so it might go quick. Prove things. 13. Neither can they prove the things. Times prove all things. Hold fast that which is good. 1 Thessalonians, 5:21. Despise not prophesying, prove all things. So it's telling you to use sound argument. Don't just despise for the sake of despising prophecies. Prove all things. Then you can despise it and criticize the church. Hold fast to that which is good, which you found out to be true. So yes, there's sound argument in the New Testament, but you got to search for it. And then they make a mistranslation in 22, abstain from all appearance of evil. Evil has no appearance. It's all in your mind. False, unsound thinking. That's evil. Because remember, Lucifer, he's got no body. So he can't appear. You know, as a spirit, I guess he could, but he doesn't appear to everybody each and every single time to tell people lies, to get them to believe those lies. No. How does he do it? He works through your mind. And if you believe the lies, with whatever you're told, hey, here's the seed, believe it. Okay. I believe this seed. It is a true seed, and I share you my witness that it is a true seed. And I say this in the name. Come on, don't be dumb. A testimony is about saying, hey, I had received this seed, and I trusted in it, and so I did this particular action to see if it would come true, and lo and behold, I found out it was true. That's my testimony to you Mormons. I had critics and other religious people and questions within the church about contradicting scriptures, contradicting doctrines, contradicting precepts. And I said, I don't know what to believe. I then started replicating things. I did the research, church history. I didn't single out church-approved materials because they were insufficient. The Joseph Smith history is insufficient. He does not talk about Joseph Smith Sr. and his experience in Vermont, going to church with the new Israelites, being a master rodsman, not practicing polygamy or plural wifery, spiritual wifery, I guess it was. And then having his son named with the spelling of the Freemasonic Hiram, spelled differently after the anti-Freemasonic movement. And then having the Jewish mystical Tree of Life vision, which was had in Freemasons also, and then becoming a Freemason in Palmyra before moving to his farm with a copper shop. The copper plates were hidden deep in a mountainside. Ooh, notice that twist? If it were gold plates, it would be too heavy to carry that long distance. They were copper. It's possible he could have done it as a farm worker. And apparently he was fairly strong with the wrestling matches he was in all the time. So yeah, copper could have worked. Copper? Copper farm? Copper shop? And Oliver Cowdery, experienced in transferring written documents onto copper plates for printing. Not a coincidence. Do your research, Mormons, before you go around claiming the church is true, the Book of Mormon is a correct translation. See, that's another unsound reasoning. You don't know the Book of Mormon is a correct translation. You lie. I know you lie because I found the truth. I studied Paleo-Hebrew, made discoveries of its origins. I then went into Egyptian, made discoveries on how to translate pictures, not just the text. I know the Book of Mormon is not a translation of an ancient Egyptian, not Hebrew, text. Mormons after Mormons are listening to the apostate apologists from BYU who are claiming that there's Hebraisms in the Book of Mormon and therefore the book is true. No! The Book of Mormon claims to be Egyptian, not Hebrew. There's not supposed to be the chiasmus that John Gee claims he found, which also proves that the book is plagiarized from contemporary early 1800 textual documents that had chiasmus in them. That's what John Gee revealed, is that the Book of Mormon is plagiarized from books containing chiasmus. Just like Joe Samson revealed that Joseph Smith or his band of merry men plagiarized Jewish mystical documents. That's what Joe Samson discovered. You've got to use all the premises. You can't selectively choose which premises you want to have to lead to your conclusion. That's unsound. So Mormons, if you're saying that the church is true in the sense of correct succession through Brigham Young, you lie. If you claim the Book of Mormon is a correct translation, you lie. If you claim it is a true book of historical fact, you lie. Because Solomon Spaulding used the American Indians in Western New York as the basis for his fiction book, Manifest Story? See, the one with story, manuscript found, or, yeah, it was manuscript lost, or found. I think it was either lost or found, and is now lost. So I think it was manuscript found, and now it's lost. But because he gave it to the print press, where Sidney Rigdon had been a friend of the workers and had daily visited the place, and so he knew of the document of Solomon Spaulding's, who didn't have the money to publish it, and therefore just left it at the publishers until he could come up with the money for it, but then he died. And then shortly thereafter, the printing company went bust, and they had to destroy their shop and give away all the documents or destroy them. So then Sidney Rigdon is involved with Oliver Cowdery in the production of a book. Wonder what book? All of a sudden he's deciding to come up with a book. Yeah, so, and then he gets Oliver Cowdery because Oliver Cowdery has a known experience with this, having worked with William Morgan. So do your research, Mormons. Don't just claim, and that by claiming it'll then make it true. That's what Trump tries to get people to do. He tells lies over and over and over again until you believe the lie and call it truth. Don't do that. Don't fall for that. Not in the church, not with somebody's knocking on my door. All right, so I'm already hit an hour, so let's end this. So, please, don't fall for the lies.